Where in the world is Chris Froome? Let's start with a pressing question on everyone's lips. Where is Chris Froome? Is he stuck in an airport security trying to explain why he's still carrying 4 yellow jerseys? Is he off-grid in an alpine monastery seeking clarity after Tour de France snub? Not quite. Chris Froome is actually somewhere far, far away from France this July, physically, emotionally, and very, very strategically. While 176 riders line up for the Tour de France, our dear Froome is off in Rwanda riding the Tour of the Opaque Lakes, or maybe doing recon for the 2032 Masters Gravel Series. In any case, he's not in France, and that's all you need to know. He's wearing a kit that still technically says Premier Tech on it, but no one's really checking because he's the only one in the race over 39 who doesn't have a GoPro strapped to his chest. No time limits, no GC ambitions, just vibes and a gentle descent into the sunset of a career that once terrified even the greats. But why isn't he on the most prestigious start list in the world? Let's go through the 3 vital truths that explain why Froome's Tour de France ambitions were packed into a padded suitcase and checked in with excess baggage. Premier Tech only cares about stage wins, not sentimentality or seniors. Let's talk tactics. Gone are the days when teams brought a former champion to the Tour de France just to get emotional camera shots of him suffering off the back of an alpine stage. Nope, Premier Tech have pivoted. They're not hunting GC dreams or yellow jersey fantasies anymore. They're not pretending to fight Pogačar or Vingegaard for the throne. They've seen what happens when you try that. Total humiliation and possibly public weeping. Instead, they've adopted a simple, smart, and deeply Froome-proof strategy. Just win a stage. Any stage. One, please. And so Froome, Chris Froome, was left off the roster. Because in 2025, if you're not sprinting like Jasper Philipsen, climbing like Remco Evenepoel on EPO flashbacks, or attacking like you've got GPS coordinates for every weakness in the peloton, you're not making the cut. Premier Tech went with the likes of Pascal Ackermann and Jake Stewart. Yeah, that's right, Ackermann, who occasionally remembers how to sprint if there's a buffet at the finish line, and Stewart, who recently got confused and tried to lead out a breakaway group on a descent. But at least they can try to win a stage, right? Froome, he's trying to win back his top 20 spot on Strava. The team even brought along Michael Woods, who is now somehow older than Froome, but still climbs like a goat, and falls off his bike only occasionally. Sorry Chris, but unless you can hang with this group of chaotic opportunists, you are better off, quote, rebuilding for Roubaix, or something equally optimistic. The fitness level of a retired accountant. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the skeletal giraffe on a bike, Chris Froome's current form. There was a time when Chris's watts per kilo ratio inspired fear in the peloton and rage on Twitter threads about motor doping. Now, his watts are measured in polite coughs. His race calendar in 2025 reads like the diary of someone desperately avoiding confrontation. Quote, UAE Tour, DNS, Tirreno Adriatico, broken wrist, Tour de Anywhere but France, possibly happening. Froome's own body appears to have joined Premier Tech in a formal rebellion. He fractured his collarbone this spring just by looking at a crosswind. His scaphoid broke in March after a gentle lean into a curb. If we're being honest, his bones have more press this year than his legs. And Chris knows it. He's not in denial. In interviews, he's admitted that 2025 might be, quote, his last year, which is the equivalent, or the athletic equivalent, of setting your LinkedIn profile to open to retirement. He shows up at races now looking more like a touring cyclist who's lost his group than a 4-time Tour de France winner. There's a certain grace to it, in the same way watching a grand piano fall slowly from a 3rd-story window is kind of poetic. The descent is real, but it has weight, it has history. At this point, his SRM power meter is mostly for show. It's there to make the other guys nervous, right before they realise he's averaging 230 watts and somehow still gasping like a deflated air mattress. His FDP used to break dreams, now it mostly breaks expectations. Fear of France, a new disorder. Let's get theoretical for a moment. What if Chris Froome is scared? Not of racing, not of climbing, but of France itself. Totally justified. Think about it. If you've won the Tour so many times, and even seen how beautiful the country used to be, and then for 3 consecutive years, the only way your name made it into a Tour broadcast was in a sentence like, quote, Chris Froome, still off the back, wouldn't you develop a phobia? Not to mention the country itself. Maybe he wakes up in cold sweats thinking about La Planche del Belles Filets. Maybe cobbles give him hives. Or maybe he doesn't want to be remembered as the guy who got dropped by sprinters on mountain stages. So what is the fix? Well, forget about France, because that's too far gone, like most of Europe. But for Froome, well, it's simple. You don't go. You, quote, focus on other races. You ride the Tour of Slovenia and pretend it's just as important. You film motivational content in Rwanda. You smile at gravel fans. You lean into legacy, because if you show up and get shelled again, well, that legacy gets real fragile, real fast. And it's not like the fans would be kind either. I'm a huge supporter of Chris Froome, and look at how much I'm laying into him right now. Half of them would be like, quote, look at the legend, respect. And the other half would be meme editing clips of him riding like he's towing a caravan while getting dropped. So in that context, not racing the Tour becomes the brave thing, the noble thing, or maybe just the less humiliating thing. The end of the Froome era, featuring discount nostalgia and free Wi-Fi. So now we ask, is this the end? Not just of the Tour for Froome, but of the Froome era. Is he now officially the yellow jersey version of a blockbuster DVD rental? Once dominant, now nostalgic, and mostly useful as a coaster? In a way, yes. Because the truth is, Chris Froome was great, monumental even, a tactical genius, with a cadence that made him look like he was fleeing a wasp nest. In 2025, Premier Tech doesn't care about your resume, they care about your current form, they care about vibes, about not looking foolish when Pogačar attacks, and your guy is still adjusting his damn helmet. Froome doesn't fit the strategy anymore, unfortunately. He doesn't bring stage wins, he doesn't bring GC leadership, and unfortunately, he no longer brings fear to his rivals, just gentle confusion and respect. He's not a threat, he's a TED talk in Lycra about the dangers of overtraining and downhill crashes. And while Froome has said he's, quote, open to one last Grand Tour, it's clear that unless every single other rider at Premier Tech catches the flu, the Grand Tour won't be the one in July that started now. Maybe he gets the Vuelta, maybe he gets a tribute ride in Canada with a camera crew and a video montage narrated by Bradley Wiggins. Or maybe next year we'll see him debuting his new cycling podcast called, quote, Dropped Early with Chris Froome, where each episode lasts exactly as long as he can hold the peloton. Final thoughts. Why didn't Chris Froome make the Tour de France for Premier Tech? Because they want stage hunters and he's more of a stage narrator now. Because his fitness is a polite fiction. Because even he knows that showing up to get dropped isn't a legacy, it's a warning sign. But let's be honest, we will miss him, and we respect him greatly, regardless of the banter and the cheeky digs in today's video. The awkward descending, the long interviews where he's saying, quote, I'm feeling better, and you know he's lying, the signature pedal stroke that looked like a malfunctioning metronome, the sunglasses that cost more than your rent. He's not at the Tour, he's somewhere else, and maybe he's finally okay with that. Let the Froome cook, or at least let him rest. Thank you for watching today's video. If you're new, please consider subscribing to stay up to date with all of the latest cycling news, drama, and cycling results. Also comment down below your opinions, and correct me if you think I made any mistakes in today's research and script. Thanks, and please drop a like before you go to see if we can hit 1,000 likes on today's video.